The morning sun cast long shadows across the Mars colony when the message arrived. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was checking the water recycling systems when her communication device buzzed with an urgent signal. The display showed a priority alert. From Earth Defense Command? She had never seen one before. All senior staff to the command center immediately, the message read. Elena dropped her tools and ran. The command center buzzed with activity. Screens flashed with data streams and communication channels from across the solar system. Admiral Sarah Chun stood at the center of it all, her face grim as she studied a holographic display floating above the main table. "What's the situation?" Elena asked as she joined the other department heads gathering around the Admiral. Admiral Chun looked up. Her usually calm expression showed something Elena had never seen before: fear. "We received a transmission 30 minutes ago," Chun said. "It came from outside our solar system, from something calling itself the Galactic Council." Elena felt her stomach drop. First contact. After decades of searching for alien life, they had finally found humans. Or rather, they had found humans first. What did they say? Asked Dr. James Park, the head of the research division. Admiral Chun pressed a button on the hologram controls. The display changed to show a recording of the transmission. The image that appeared made several people step back. The alien was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Its head was larger than a human's, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face. When it spoke, the translation software had given it a cold, mechanical voice. "I am Ambassador Zextel of the Hegemony, speaking for the Galactic Council," the alien said. "We address the species known as humans of the planet Earth," the recording continued. "Your rapid expansion beyond your birth world has been noted. Your development of advanced weapons and space travel technology poses a threat to galactic stability." Elena watched in growing horror as the alien delivered what could only be called an ultimatum. "The Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding your species. You will immediately halt all expansion beyond your solar system. You will surrender all advanced weapons technology to Council representatives. You will accept Council oversight of your civilization." The alien paused, and somehow its expression became even colder. "You have 72 standard hours to comply with these demands. Failure to do so will result in corrective action against your species. This is not a negotiation. This is a final warning." The transmission ended. The command center fell silent. Except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of air recyclers. "How many ships do they have?" Elena finally asked. "Long-range sensors detected a fleet massing at the edge of our solar system," Admiral Chun replied. "Current count is over 200 vessels. Some of them are massive. Bigger than anything we've ever built." Dr. Park ran his hands through his. "Gray hair, 200 ships. We have maybe 30 combat-capable vessels scattered across the system." 28, Chun corrected. "And most of those are patrol boats and system defense platforms. Nothing designed for fleet combat." Elena looked around the room at the faces of Earth's best and brightest. These were the people who had built the first permanent Mars colony, who had established mining operations in the asteroid belt, who had sent probes to the outer planets. Now they looked defeated before the fight had even started. "What do we know about them?" Elena asked. "This Galactic Council?" Admiral Chun brought up a new display. "Based on the transmission data and what our sensors can tell us, they represent multiple alien species. The fleet composition suggests at least 5 different ship designs, probably from different worlds. So this isn't just one species threatening." "U.S., Dr. Park said. "It's an alliance of multiple civilizations. That's what it looks like," Chun agreed. "And they seem to think we're primitive enough to just roll over and surrender." Elena studied the sensor data showing the alien fleet. The ships were arranged in perfect formation at the very edge of the solar system, just beyond Pluto's orbit. They weren't hiding. They weren't trying to be sneaky. They were making a statement. They want us to see them, she realized. "They're showing us how outgunned we are, probably," Chun said. "Classic intimidation tactic." Show overwhelming force and hope the enemy surrenders without a fight. Are we going to surrender? Asked Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, the base's security chief. Admiral Chun was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady and determined. No, we're not. Admiral, Dr. Park said carefully, I understand the impulse to fight, but we need to be realistic. They have 200 ships. We have less than 30. The math isn't in our favor. The math never is, Chun replied. When the American colonies fought the British Empire, the math wasn't in their favor either. When tiny Finland fought the Soviet Union, the math said they should lose in weeks. This is different, Dr. Park interrupted. Those were human conflicts. These are aliens with technology we don't understand. Admiral Chun smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. You're right. This is different, but maybe not in the way you think. She turned to Elena. Dr. Rodriguez, I need you to get me everything we know about their ships. Engine signatures, hull composition, anything our sensors can tell us. What are you thinking? Elena asked. I'm thinking that maybe they don't know us as well as they think they do, Chun said. They called us primitive. They gave us an ultimatum like we're children who need to be disciplined. She pulled up another display, this one showing human. Military installations across the solar system. But here's what they might not know. Humans don't just surrender when threatened. We get angry, and when humans get angry, we get creative. Elena began to understand. You want to fight them. I want to show them that threatening humanity was a mistake, Chun said. They think they know what kind of species we are. They think we're just another primitive civilization that will fold the moment we see their superior technology. But we're not, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez said, his voice growing excited. No, we're not, Admiral Chun agreed. We're the species that split the atom and then used it to end a world war. We're the species that went from first flight to landing on the moon in 66 years. We're the species that looked at the impossible, distance between stars, and said, we'll find a way. Elena felt a chill run down her spine, but it wasn't fear. It was anticipation. What do you need from us? She asked. Admiral Chun turned to address the entire room. I need every department head to compile a complete inventory of our capabilities. Not just military hardware, everything, every research project, every experimental technology, every half-finished prototype sitting in a lab somewhere. Even the classified projects? Dr. Park asked. Especially the classified projects, Chun said. I have a feeling we're going to need every advantage we can get. She paused and looked around the room again. I'm not going to lie to you. The odds are against us. They have more ships, older technology, probably centuries or millennia of experience with space warfare. But they made one critical mistake. What's that? Elena asked. Admiral Chun's smile became even more dangerous. They gave us 72 hours to prepare. They think that's enough time for us to realize how hopeless our situation is and surrender. What they don't realize is that 72 hours is enough time for humans to do something crazy. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. So we're really going to fight them, Dr. Park said. It wasn't a question. We're going to do more than fight them, Admiral Chun said. We're going to show them why threatening humanity is the worst mistake anyone can make in this galaxy. Elena looked around the room at her colleagues. These were scientists, engineers, researchers. Most of them had never seen combat. But she could see something changing in their faces. The fear was still there, but it was being replaced by something else. Determination. Admiral, Elena said, what do you need me to do? Get me everything our sensors have recorded about their fleet, Chun replied. Ship sizes, energy signatures, formation patterns. Everything. Done. Dr. Park, I need a complete list of every experimental project in your division. Even the ones that didn't work. Especially the ones that didn't work, Dr. Park said with growing understanding. Admiral Chun nodded. Sometimes the things that don't work for their intended purpose work perfectly for something else entirely. She turned to address the entire room one final time. People, we have 72 hours to prepare for the most important battle in human history. Not just for Earth, not just for our colonies, but for the right of humanity to exist as a free species. Elena felt her heart pounding. This was really happening. After all the science fiction stories, all the speculation about what would happen. When humanity finally met alien life, here they were. And it wasn't going the way anyone had imagined. Are there any questions? Admiral Chun asked. Elena raised her hand. Just one. Do you really think we can win? Admiral Chun looked at her for a long moment before answering. Dr. Rodriguez, I think the Galactic Council is about to learn something that every human enemy has learned throughout our history. We might not be the strongest species in the galaxy. We might not be the smartest. We might not have the best technology. She paused, and her voice became deadly serious. But we are absolutely, without question, the most stubborn species that has ever existed. And sometimes, stubborn is enough. The meeting ended, and everyone dispersed to their tasks. Elena hurried back to her lab, her mind already racing with possibilities. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species. They thought humans would surrender when faced with overwhelming odds. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 48 hours remained when Dr. Marcus Webb received the call that would change everything. He was deep underground in the Nevada facility, 3 miles beneath the desert surface, when his secure phone buzzed with an emergency priority signal. Dr. Webb, this is Admiral Chun. I need you in the briefing room immediately. Marcus looked up from the equations covering his whiteboard. For 6 years, he had been working on Project Prometheus in complete secrecy. Only 12 people in the world knew what he was really doing down here. Now it seemed that number was about to grow. On my way, Admiral. The elevator ride to the briefing level took 4 minutes. Marcus used the time to think about what Admiral Chun might want. The project was still theoretical. The math worked, but they had never tested it on anything larger than a grain of rice. Still, if the rumors about alien contact were true, maybe theory would have to be enough. The briefing room was packed when Marcus arrived. He recognized faces from across the government and military. Secretary of Defense Williams sat at the head of the table, with Admiral Chun beside her. Around them were representatives from every major defense contractor, research facility, and military branch. Dr. Webb, Admiral Chun said as he entered, thank you for coming. Please, take a seat. Marcus sat down and waited. Secretary Williams stood and addressed the room. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level. 2 days ago, we received a transmission from an alien alliance calling itself the Galactic Council. They have given us an ultimatum: surrender or be destroyed. A murmur went around the room. Even though most of them had suspected something like this, hearing it confirmed was still shocking. We have 24 hours left to comply with their demands, Williams continued. We will not be complying, the murmur grew louder. Williams raised her hand for silence. Instead, we are going to show them why threatening Earth was a mistake. Admiral Chun will explain. Admiral Chun stood and activated the room's holographic display. The image showed the alien fleet at the edge of the solar system. 207 ships, Chun said. Our best estimates put their total firepower at roughly 50 times what our entire fleet can deliver. In a conventional fight, we would lose badly. She paused and looked around the room. So we're not going to fight conventionally. The display changed to show a schematic of something Marcus didn't recognize at first. Then he realized what he was looking at and felt his blood run cold. Dr. Webb, Admiral Chun said, would you please explain Project Prometheus to the group? Marcus stood slowly, his mouth felt dry. Project Prometheus is a theoretical weapon system based on relativistic physics. The basic concept is simple. Take a small object and accelerate it to a significant fraction of light speed. He gestured to the hologram. At 30% of light speed, even a small projectile carries enormous kinetic energy. The math is straightforward. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. When the velocity approaches light speed, the energy becomes enormous. Finished Dr. Sarah Kim from the Lawrence Livermore Lab. You're talking about turning physics into a weapon. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Marcus said. A 1 kilogram projectile moving at 30% light speed carries roughly 4.5 times 10 to the 15th joules of energy. That's equivalent to a 1 megaton nuclear weapon, but with no radiation and no fallout. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. How do you accelerate something to that speed? Asked General Morrison from Space Command. Marcus turned to the hologram and highlighted different sections of the schematic. Multiple stages. First, we use a railgun to provide initial acceleration. Then fusion ramjets take over for the middle phase. Finally, we use gravitational assists from the outer planets to reach final velocity. How long does this take? Admiral Chun asked. From launch to target impact, approximately 18 hours if we're aiming at the edge of the solar system. Secretary Williams leaned forward. Dr. Webb, is this system operational? Marcus hesitated. The theory is sound. We've tested individual components, but we've never built a full-scale system. How long would it take to build one? Under normal circumstances, 2 years, minimum. And under emergency circumstances? Marcus looked around the room at the assembled experts. Every major defense contractor was represented. Every national laboratory, every military research facility. If we had unlimited resources and complete cooperation from everyone in this room, maybe 20 hours, Admiral Chun smiled. Dr. Webb, you have unlimited resources and complete cooperation. General Morrison, I need every construction team from every military base in North America. Dr. Kim, I need every fabrication facility at Lawrence Livermore working on this project. Mr. Patterson, she turned to the Boeing representative. I need your best engineers and every piece of advanced manufacturing equipment you have. The room erupted in activity as people began making phone calls and sending messages. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the sudden rush of support. Admiral, he said, even if we can build it in time, we've never tested the system. We don't know if it will work. Dr. Webb, Admiral Chun replied, do you believe the physics is correct? Yes. Do you believe the engineering is sound? In theory, yes. Then we build it and hope for the best. Because right now, hope is all we have. Over the next 18 hours, Marcus watched the most impressive display of human coordination he had ever seen. Construction teams worked around the clock building the railgun assembly. The railgun itself was massive, over 2 kilometers long, built into a canyon in Nevada desert. At the Lawrence Livermore Lab, teams worked on the fusion ramjet components. The ramjets would have to operate in the vacuum of space, collecting interstellar hydrogen to fuel their operation. It was cutting-edge technology that pushed the limits of human engineering. Meanwhile, trajectory specialists calculated the exact path the projectile would need to follow. They had to account for the gravitational pull of every planet, every asteroid, every significant mass in the solar system. The calculations were staggeringly complex. Dr. Webb, Admiral Chun said as she joined him at the construction site. How are we looking? Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. The railgun is almost complete. The ramjets are installed and tested. The trajectory is calculated, but I have to be honest with you, Admiral. This is still experimental technology. There are 1,000 things that could go wrong. What's our chance of success? Marcus thought about it, maybe 60%. Better odds than fighting their fleet directly? Chun said. What about the projectile itself? Tungsten core, depleted uranium jacket, total mass of 5 kilograms. At 30% light speed, it will hit with the energy of a 5 megaton. Boom. Admiral Chun was quiet for a moment. Will that be enough to get their attention? Admiral, if this works, it will get everyone's attention. The energy release will be visible from Earth with the naked eye. Good, I want them to see exactly what we're capable of. With 6 hours left until the alien deadline, the system was ready. Marcus stood in the control bunker, looking at readouts from hundreds of sensors and computers. Everything showed green. "Dr. Webb," Admiral Chun said over the intercom from Earth Defense Command, "are you ready?" Marcus looked at his team. 24 of the best scientists and engineers on Earth, all working together on humanity's most desperate gamble. "We're ready, Admiral. Target? The flagship," Marcus said. "Sensors indicate it's the largest ship in their fleet. If we're going to send a message, we might as well make it a clear one." "Understood, Dr. Webb. You are authorized to fire when ready." Marcus turned to his launch team. Final system check. "Railgun charged and ready. Ramjets armed and tested. Trajectory locked in. All sensors green." Marcus took a deep breath. In all of human history, no one had ever built a weapon like this. They were about to fire a projectile that would travel at 90,000 kilometers per second. If it worked, it would arrive at the alien fleet in just over 18 hours. If it didn't work, Earth would face the alien fleet with conventional weapons. And that would be the end of human civilization. "Fire," Marcus said. The railgun fired, with a sound like thunder. The projectile shot out of the canyon at 30 kilometers per second, already faster than any human-made object in history. But this was just the beginning. As the projectile cleared Earth's atmosphere, the first ramjet ignited, then the second, then the third. Each stage added velocity, pushing the small tungsten dart faster and faster. Marcus watched the telemetry. As the projectile raced toward the outer solar system, everything was working perfectly. The ramjets were performing exactly as designed. The trajectory was precise. "Velocity?" Admiral Chun asked over the comm. "Increasing steadily," Marcus reported. "Current speed is 8,000 kilometers per second and climbing. Time to target? 17 hours, 36 minutes. Admiral Chun was quiet for a moment. "Dr. Webb, assuming this works, what should we expect to see?" Marcus pulled up his calculations. "The impact will release approximately 2.2 times 10 to the 16th joules of energy. That's equivalent to 5 megatons of TNT released instantaneously. The target ship will be completely vaporized. Any nearby ships will be severely damaged by the radiation pulse. And we'll be able to see it from Earth? Admiral, the energy release will briefly outshine the sun. Everyone on the night side of Earth will see it." "Perfect," Admiral Chun said. "I want them to know that when humans are threatened, we don't just fight back. We fight back with the fundamental forces of the universe." Marcus looked at his display, showing the projectile's progress. It was now traveling at over 20,000 kilometers per second and still accelerating. In 16 hours, it would reach the alien fleet. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species. They thought humans would surrender when faced with superior technology. They were about to learn that humans had a different approach to superior technology. When faced with something better than what they had, humans didn't surrender. They built something better. "Dr. Webb," Admiral Chun said, "I want you to know that regardless of what happens in the next 18 hours, you and your team have given humanity a fighting chance. That's more than we had yesterday." Marcus nodded, though he knew she couldn't see him. "Admiral, there's something else you should know. If this works, if we actually manage to hit their flagship with a relativistic projectile, we won't just be sending them a message." "What do you mean?" "We'll be announcing to the entire galaxy that Earth has mastered weaponized physics. Every civilization out there will know that humanity can build weapons that turn mass and velocity into planet-killing energy." "And that's a bad thing?" Marcus smiled grimly. "No, Admiral. I think that's exactly the kind of reputation we want to have." 16 hours after launch, the tungsten projectile reached its maximum velocity. Dr. Marcus Webb watched the telemetry from his control bunker as the small dart traveled at 97,000 kilometers per second through the dark between worlds. At that speed, it was moving at almost one-third the speed of light itself. "Current position?" Admiral Chun asked over the communication link. "Passing Jupiter's orbit," Marcus reported. "All systems nominal. projected impact in 2 hours, 14 minutes. On the bridge of the massive alien flagship Eternal Dominion, Fleet Commander Thexver reviewed the latest reports from his scouts. The humans had gone completely silent after receiving the ultimatum. No communications, no diplomatic overtures, no signs of preparation for either surrender or battle. Perhaps they are paralyzed by fear, suggested Sub-Commander Kreltoth, his second-in-command. Thexver was not convinced. His species, the hegemony, had been part of the Galactic Council for over 3,000 years. In that time, they had delivered ultimatums to dozens of primitive species. Most surrendered immediately when they saw the size of a council fleet. The few that chose to fight were quickly overwhelmed, but something about the humans felt different. Their expansion into space had been remarkably rapid. Their technology, while crude, showed an unusual creativity, and the complete silence was unlike any species they had encountered before. "Commander," called the sensor operator from his station, "I'm detecting a small object approaching our position." Thexver moved to the sensor display. "Show me." The screen displayed the human solar system with their fleet positioned at the outer edge. A tiny dot was moving from the inner system toward their position. "Velocity?" Thexver asked. "Sir, the sensors must be malfunctioning. They're showing impossible readings." "What kind of readings?" "Sir, the object appears to be traveling at approximately 30% of light speed." Thexver stared at the display. "That's impossible. No known propulsion system can achieve such velocities. Should we consider it a threat, sir?" Sub-Commander Kreltos asked. Thexver studied the sensor data. The object was incredibly small, no larger than a grain of sand according to their instruments. Even traveling at such an impossible speed, what damage could something so tiny possibly do? "Continue monitoring," he decided, "but maintain our position. Whatever the humans are attempting, it's clearly a desperate gesture." In the Earth Defense Command Center, Admiral Chun watched the countdown timer, 1 hour and 43 minutes until impact. Around her, the command staff monitored communications from across the solar system. Every human ship, station, and colony was watching and waiting. "Admiral," Dr. Elena Rodriguez called from her station, "we're getting reports from our deep space sensors. The alien fleet hasn't moved. They're maintaining position exactly where they were when they delivered the ultimatum." Admiral Chun nodded. "They're confident. They probably think our projectile is some kind of primitive missile. Should we warn them?" asked Colonel Martinez from the communications station. "Warn them about what?" Chun replied. "We're not targeting civilian ships. We're targeting their flagship. In military terms, that's a legitimate target." She paused and looked around the command center. "Besides, this isn't about destroying their ship. This is about sending a message. And messages are only effective if the recipient understands them clearly." Dr. Webb's voice came over the intercom. "Admiral, projectile is now 1 hour from impact. All telemetry normal. The object is holding course and velocity. Any signs that they've detected it?" "Unknown? At this distance and speed, even there, advanced sensors might have trouble tracking something so small." Admiral Chun understood. The projectile was traveling so fast that by the time their sensors detected it, they would have only seconds to react. And there was nothing they could do anyway. No ship could move fast enough to avoid an object traveling at 1/3 light speed. 40-7 minutes from impact. Fleet Commander Thexver received an urgent report from his chief science officer. "Commander, I've been analyzing the approaching object, sir. I believe we may have seriously underestimated the humans." "Explain." "Sir, if my calculations are correct, that object is not just traveling at 30% of light speed. It's a kinetic projectile. At that velocity, even a small mass would carry devastating energy." Thexver felt a chill run through his body. "How much energy?" "Sir, if the object masses even 1 kilogram, the impact energy would be equivalent to several megatons of explosive force." The bridge fell silent. Thexver stared at the display showing the tiny dot racing toward them. "Time to impact? 46 minutes, 17 seconds. Can we move the fleet out of its path?" Sir, at our maximum acceleration, we would need approximately 3 hours to clear the projected impact zone. Vexver realized with growing horror that the humans had outmaneuvered them completely. The Council fleet was positioned exactly where the humans wanted them, and now a weapon was racing toward them that they could not avoid and could not stop. "Send an emergency transmission to all ships," he ordered. "Prepare for kinetic impact. All vessels initiate maximum defensive procedures." But even as he gave the orders, Vexver knew they would be useless. The Eternal Dominion was a massive ship, over 5 kilometers long and protected by energy shields that could stop nuclear weapons. But kinetic energy was different. Kinetic energy was pure physics, and physics did not care about shields or armor. 20-3 minutes from impact. Every human facility in the solar system received the same message from Admiral Chun. "All stations, this is Earth Defense Command. In 23 minutes, you will witness the first use of a relativistic kinetic weapon in human history. The weapon is targeted at the alien flagship. Impact energy will be equivalent to 5 megatons of TNT." She paused, letting that information sink in. "What you are about to see represents more than just a weapons test. It represents humanity's announcement to the galaxy that we are not a primitive species to be bullied. We are a species that has learned to weaponize the fundamental forces of the universe." Dr. Webb watched his instruments as the projectile closed the final distance. The tungsten dart had performed perfectly throughout its 18-hour journey. The ramjets had fired exactly as planned. The gravitational assist had provided the precise velocity increases needed. Everything had worked. 5 minutes to impact, he announced, on every human ship and station. People stopped what they were doing and turned toward the outer system. Telescopes swung toward the alien fleet. Camera drones positioned themselves for the best view. Humanity was about to witness something that had never happened before in galactic history. Fleet. Commander Vexver stood on his bridge and watched death approach at 97,000 kilometers per second. His ship's computers had calculated the impact point. The projectile would strike the Eternal Dominion almost exactly in the center, where the ship's main power core was located. "Sir," his science officer reported, "final mass estimate on the incoming projectile is 5.2 kilograms. Impact energy, sir, 5.8 megatons equivalent." Vexver closed his eyes. The Eternal Dominion was the most powerful ship in the hegemony fleet. It had served for over 800 years. It had conquered dozens of worlds. And it was about to be destroyed by a piece of metal the size of a small rock, fired by a species the Council had dismissed as primitive. 30 seconds to impact, the sensor operator announced. Vexver opened his communication channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Fleet Commander Vexver. The humans have taught us a lesson today about the danger of underestimating any species. Whatever happens in the next 30 seconds, remember that knowledge. Take it back to the Council. Make sure they understand what we learned here." He paused, watching the final seconds count down. 10 seconds to impact. The tungsten projectile, traveling at 32% of light speed, struck the Eternal Dominion exactly amidships. The impact released 5.8 megatons of energy in less than a nanosecond. The massive ship simply ceased to exist. The energy release was so intense that it briefly created a small star in the darkness of space. The flash was visible across the entire solar system, bright enough to cast shadows on Mars and clearly visible from Earth even in daylight. The 3 escort ships closest to the flagship were caught in the expanding wave of superheated plasma and radiation. Their shields failed instantly, their hulls vaporized. In less than 2 seconds, 4 of the Council's most powerful ships had been reduced to expanding clouds of ionized gas. On Earth, Admiral Chun watched the explosion through the command center's main display. The energy release was exactly what Dr. Webb had predicted. The alien flagship and its escorts were gone, replaced by a rapidly expanding sphere of light and energy. "My God," whispered Colonel Martinez, "we actually did it." Admiral Chun activated the communication system and opened a channel to the remaining alien fleet. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of Earth Defense Command, addressing the Galactic Council. Fleet, what you have just witnessed was a demonstration of human defensive capability. She paused, watching the debris cloud continue to expand. The projectile that destroyed your flagship was accelerated using human technology to 32% of light speed. The impact energy was equivalent to a 5-megaton nuclear weapon, but with no radioactive fallout and no electromagnetic pulse. Another pause. This was not our most powerful weapon. This was a warning shot. Admiral Chung looked around the command center at her staff. Every face showed the same expression of amazement and pride. You demanded that humanity surrender our weapons and accept Council oversight. Instead, we offer you a counter-proposal. Withdraw your fleet from our solar system immediately. Return to the Council and inform them that Earth is under the protection of weapons that can destroy ships at the speed of light. She leaned forward toward the communication pickup. If any Council ship remains in our system in 1 hour, we will interpret that as an act of war. And if you think one projectile traveling at 1/3 light speed was impressive, wait until you see what happens when we fire a full salvo. Admiral Chung closed the communication channel and turned to Dr. Webb's voice on the intercom. Dr. Webb, how long would it take to prepare a second projectile? Admiral, we can have another one ready to fire in 6 hours. And now that we know the system works, we can build more railguns. Within a week, we could have a dozen of them operational. Admiral Chun smiled. The aliens had wanted to know what kind of species humanity was. Now they knew. Dr. Webb, begin construction on 5. More railguns immediately. And start working on larger projectiles. If we're going to have a reputation in this galaxy, let's make sure it's the right one. On the surviving ships of the Council fleet, emergency meetings were already underway. The humans had just demonstrated technology that made their entire fleet obsolete. Worse, they had done it with what appeared to be a hastily constructed weapon system. If the humans could build weapons like this quickly, if they could accelerate projectiles to relativistic speeds, if they could deliver planet-killing energy at the speed of light, then the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted dramatically. And humanity had just announced to the universe that they were no longer a primitive species to be conquered. They were a species that had learned to weaponize physics itself. The Emergency Council session began exactly 1 hour after the Eternal Dominion was destroyed. Representatives from 17 different species appeared on the holographic conference platform, their faces showing a mixture of shock, fear, and disbelief. High Counselor Vexthara of the Ancient Ones called the session to order. Her species had founded the Galactic Council 4,000 years ago, and in all that time they had never faced a situation like this. We have all witnessed the destruction of the Hegemony flagship, she began, her voice carefully controlled. We are here to discuss the implications of what the humans have demonstrated. Sub-Commander Kreltoth, now the senior surviving officer of the Hegemony fleet, appeared in the center of the platform. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by something none of them had seen from a Hegemony officer before. Fear. Honored counselors, Kreltoth began. I must report that the human weapon exceeded our worst projections. The Eternal Dominion was not damaged, it was not destroyed, it simply ceased to exist. Explain, demanded Counselor Zephyr of the Crystal Empire. The humans accelerated a 5-kilogram projectile to 32% of light speed. The kinetic energy release was equivalent to nearly 6 megatons of explosive force. Our shields, our armor, our defensive systems, none of it mattered. Physics cannot be defended against. The platform fell silent as the implications sank in. These were species that had mastered faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and force fields. But none of them had ever thought to use raw kinetic energy as a weapon. How is such acceleration possible? Asked Counselor Morden of the Tech Syndicate. His species prided themselves on their technological advancement. We don't know, Kreltoth admitted. Our sensors detected multiple acceleration phases. They appeared to use primitive chemical rockets for initial velocity, then some form of ramjet propulsion, followed by gravitational assists from their planetary bodies. Primitive? Counselor Zephyr's crystalline form flickered with agitation. You call technology that can accelerate matter to relativistic speeds primitive? The individual components are primitive, Kreltooth explained. But the way they combine them, the engineering required to make it work, we've never seen anything like it. High Counselor Vexthara studied the data streams floating around the platform. What about their threat to fire multiple projectiles? Based on the construction time for their first weapon, they could potentially build dozens of these systems within a standard month. And Counselor, they mentioned larger projectiles. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Counselor Urix of the Trade Federation spoke. We need to understand something. How did a species we classified as primitive develop weapons that make our entire fleet obsolete? Dr. Sarah Kim was asking herself the same question in her laboratory at Lawrence Livermore. She had been part of the team that built the fusion ramjets for the projectile, and now she was trying to understand how they had succeeded so completely. It doesn't make sense, she told Dr. Webb over the secure communication link. We threw together experimental technology in less than 24 hours. It should have failed. But it didn't, Dr. Webb replied from his control bunker. And I think I know why. Explain. We approached the problem differently than anyone else would. The aliens think in terms of energy weapons and force fields. They build big ships with powerful engines and sophisticated defense systems, Dr. Kim nodded. They think like a technological civilization. Exactly. But we think like engineers trying to solve a problem with whatever tools we have available. We didn't try to build the most advanced weapon possible. We built the most effective weapon possible. On the bridge of the surviving hegemony ship Iron Will, Acting Fleet Commander Kreltooth received an urgent communication from the Council. Commander. High Counselor Vexthara's image appeared on his screen. What is the status of your fleet? Counselor, we have lost 4 ships, including the flagship. The remaining vessels are undamaged, but... Counselor, I must be honest, my crews are shaken. They've never seen anything like what the humans just demonstrated. Are you able to continue the mission? Kreltooth was quiet for a long moment. Counselor, the humans gave us 1 hour to withdraw from their system. That deadline passes in 17 minutes. And? Counselor, I respectfully request permission to withdraw the fleet. The communication channel crackled with static as the High Counselor processed this request. In 4,000 years of Council history, no fleet commander had ever requested withdrawal from a primitive world. Commander, you have over 200 ships. The humans destroyed 4. Yes, Counselor. But they destroyed them with weapons that travel at light speed. We cannot fight projectiles that arrive before we can detect them. We cannot defend against weapons that use physics itself as ammunition. Admiral Chun received word of the alien. Fleet movement 18 minutes after her deadline had passed. Admiral, Dr. Rodriguez reported from her sensor station. The alien fleet is moving. They're withdrawing from the outer system. All of them? Yes, ma'am. All 203 remaining ships. They're heading out of the solar system at maximum speed. Admiral Chun felt a wave of relief wash over her. The gamble had worked. Humanity's first contact with alien life had been a threat, but they had turned it into a victory. Dr. Webb, she said over the intercom, congratulations. Your weapon just saved human civilization. Our weapon, Dr. Webb corrected. This was a team effort, Admiral. And I have a feeling it's just the beginning. Admiral Chun understood what he meant. Word of what had happened here would spread. Other alien species would hear that a small, supposedly primitive world had forced a council fleet to withdraw using weapons that seemed impossible, but the real impact was being felt in the council chambers themselves. Emergency sessions were being called on 17 different worlds as the member species tried to understand what had just happened on the crystal world of Zephyros. Counselor Zephyr stood before the Empire's military council and delivered a report that shook the foundation of their civilization. The humans have demonstrated weapons technology that renders our current military doctrine obsolete, she announced. They can deliver planet-killing energy at light speed with weapons that can be built in less than one standard day. General Thaxmer, the Empire's military commander, studied the data. How did they develop such technology so quickly? That's what concerns me most, Counselor Zephyr replied. According to our intelligence, this weapon was built in response to our ultimatum. They developed a relativistic kinetic weapon in less than 24 hours. Impossible. The evidence is floating in the debris field where the Eternal Dominion used to be. General Thaxmer was quiet for a long moment. What are you saying, Counselor? I'm saying that the humans may be the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. Not because they're violent, but because they're adaptable. When faced with a threat, they don't surrender. They innovate. On Earth, the celebration was subdued. Admiral Chun stood in the observation deck of the Earth Defense Command Center, looking out at the stars and thinking about what came next. Colonel Martinez joined her at the window. Admiral, we're receiving communication requests from dozens of sources. News agencies, government officials, even what appear to be other alien species. Other aliens? Yes, ma'am. It seems word of what happened here is spreading fast. Some of them are asking for diplomatic contact. Others are offering trade agreements. A few are asking for protection. Admiral Chun turned from the window. Protection? It appears that not everyone in the galaxy is happy with the Galactic Council's methods. Some species have been looking for someone capable of standing up to them, and now they think we're that someone. Yes, ma'am. Admiral Chun walked back toward the command center, her mind racing with possibilities. Humanity had won its first interstellar conflict, but that victory came with consequences. Earth was no longer an unknown world on the edge of the galaxy. They were now a power that other species would either fear or seek as an ally. In the council chambers, High Counselor Vexthara called for order as the emergency session continued. The debate had been going on for hours, and no consensus was emerging. The question before us is simple, she announced. How do we respond to the human demonstration? We respond with overwhelming force, declared Counselor Morden. We gather the full Council fleet and glass their planet before they can build more weapons. That would require every ship from every member species, Counselor Urix pointed out. And for what? To destroy one small world? The economic cost alone would be staggering. The cost of not acting could be higher, Morden argued. If the humans share their weapons technology with other species, if they become a rallying point for rebellion against the Council, then we'll have a war that could tear the galaxy apart, finished Counselor Zephyr. Is that really what we want? High Counselor Vexthara studied the faces of her fellow representatives. Fear was winning over wisdom. The humans had shattered the Council's sense of invincibility, and now panic was driving their decisions. There is another option, she said quietly. What option? Morden demanded. We could negotiate. The chamber erupted in angry voices. The idea of the mighty Galactic Council negotiating with a primitive species was almost unthinkable. But High Counselor Vexthara had seen the sensor data. She had studied the human weapon systems. And she understood something that the others did not. The humans hadn't just built a powerful weapon. They had built it impossibly fast using primitive technology and creative engineering. That suggested a level of adaptability and innovation that made them far more dangerous than their current weapons indicated. If the humans could build relativistic kinetic weapons in 24 hours, what could they build in a month? A year? A decade? High Counselor Vexthara made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. I am calling for a formal vote, she announced. All in favor of opening diplomatic negotiations with the human species? The vote was close. 9 species voted in favor, 8 against. But it was enough. For the first time in 4,000 years, the Galactic Council would negotiate with a species they had threatened to destroy. Admiral Chun was reviewing construction plans for additional railguns when the communication came in. The message was from the same alien that had delivered the original ultimatum, but his tone was completely different. I am Ambassador Zexthal of the Hegemony, speaking for the Galactic Council, the alien said. The Council requests the honor of opening diplomatic relations with the human species. Admiral Chun smiled, requested, not demanded. Not ordered, requested. The balance of power in the galaxy had indeed shifted, and humanity was no longer the species asking for permission to exist among the stars. They were the species that others asked permission to approach. 3 months after the destruction of the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Sarah Chun stood in what used to be called the United Nations Assembly Hall. Today, it had been renamed the Terran Diplomatic Center, and representatives from 43 different alien species filled the seats that once held Earth's national delegates. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Ambassador Zexthal of the Hegemony sat in the front row, no longer the arrogant representative who had delivered ultimatums. Now he was one of many alien diplomats seeking Earth's protection, trade agreements, or military alliance. Admiral Chun, he said as she approached the podium, the Galactic Council has voted to formally recognize Earth as a sovereign military power with full territorial rights to the Sol system. Admiral Chun nodded politely. We appreciate the Council's recognition, Ambassador. But as I've explained before, Earth doesn't seek recognition from the Council. We are what we are, regardless of what others choose to acknowledge. The subtle insult wasn't lost on anyone in the room. 6 months ago, the Council had been the ultimate authority in the galaxy. Now they were seeking legitimacy from a species they had once threatened to destroy. Dr. Marcus Webb entered the hall and took his seat among the human delegation. In the months since Project Prometheus, he had become one of the most famous humans in the galaxy. His name was spoken with equal parts respect and fear on dozens of worlds. Dr. Webb, Admiral Chun said, would you please update our guests on the current status of Earth's defensive systems? Dr. Webb stood and activated the holographic display at the center of the room. The image showed the solar system with glowing points of light scattered throughout. Currently operational are 12 relativistic railgun installations, he announced, each capable of firing projectiles at up to 40% of light speed. We also have 6 mobile platforms that can be positioned anywhere in the system within 72 hours, a murmur went through the assembled aliens. 40% of light speed was faster than anything the Council had seen before. Additionally, Dr. Webb continued, we have completed testing on larger projectile masses. Our newest installations can accelerate 20-kilogram tungsten rods to 35% of light speed. The alien delegates did the math in their heads. A 20-kilogram projectile at that velocity would carry the destructive power of a 100-megaton bomb. A single shot could destroy the largest dreadnought ever built. How many of these larger systems are operational? Asked Representative Clicks of the Trader Alliance. That information is classified, Dr. Webb replied with a smile. But I can tell you that any hostile fleet entering our system would face a very unpleasant welcome. Representative Yara of the Freehold Confederation raised her hand. Dr. Webb, there are rumors that Earth is developing even more advanced weapons. Can you comment? Dr. Webb glanced at Admiral Chun, who nodded. Project Titan is proceeding on schedule, he said. I can't discuss details, but I will say that our next generation systems will make our current weapons look primitive by comparison. The truth was that Project Titan was humanity's first attempt at building a weapon that could accelerate projectiles to 90% of light speed. At that velocity, a single shot would carry enough energy to crack a planet's crust. But Dr. Webb wasn't ready to share that information yet. In the weeks following the Eternal Dominion's destruction, something unexpected had happened across the galaxy. Species that had been suppressed by the Council for centuries began to speak up. Worlds that had been forced to pay tribute started refusing. Colonies that had been denied independence declared their freedom. The Council's response had been swift and brutal. They sent fleets to crush the rebellions, to restore order through force. But then something remarkable happened. Earth intervened. The first incident had been almost accidental. A Council fleet was preparing to bombard a rebellious colony world. when a human cargo ship happened to be in the system. Captain Lisa Rodriguez, Elena's sister, had sent a simple message to the Council ships. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Prometheus Dawn. Any attack on civilian targets in this system will be considered an act of war against Earth." The Council fleet commander had laughed at the threat. One human cargo ship against 20 Council warships? The human was clearly insane. Then the cargo ship had opened its storage bays and deployed 6 relativistic projectiles. The Council fleet had withdrawn. Without firing a shot, word of the incident spread quickly. Soon, human ships were appearing in systems throughout the galaxy, carrying the simple message that Earth would not tolerate attacks on civilian populations. The Council found themselves in an impossible position. They couldn't challenge human ships without risking full-scale war with a species that had weapons they couldn't defend against. But they also couldn't maintain order if their fleets were constantly being forced to withdraw by human traders and cargo haulers. "Admiral Chun," Ambassador Zextel said, bringing her attention back to the diplomatic meeting, "the Council wishes to discuss the establishment of formal territorial boundaries. We propose that human space be limited to your current solar system, with clearly defined neutral zones around your territory." Admiral Chun studied the holographic star map that appeared above the table. The proposed boundaries would effectively cage humanity in their home system. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "I think you misunderstand our position." "How so?" "You're operating under the assumption that Earth seeks permission to expand. We don't. Human ships will go wherever human ships choose to go. Human colonies will be established wherever humans choose to live. And human weapons will protect human interests wherever they may lie." The room fell silent. What Admiral Chen was describing wasn't a territorial agreement. It was a declaration that humanity considered the entire galaxy to be within their sphere of influence. "Admiral," Representative Click said carefully, "surely you don't mean to claim authority over the entire galaxy?" "We claim authority over human citizens and human interests," Admiral Chun replied. "If that means defending a human colony in the Andromeda system or protecting a human trading ship in Council space, then yes, we will do so." She paused and looked around the room at the assembled alien delegates. The galaxy spent 4,000 years accepting that the Council had the right to dictate terms to everyone else. Now you'll spend the next 4,000 years learning that humans don't accept anyone's authority but their own. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the diplomatic proceedings from the observation gallery above the main floor. As head of the Mars colony, she had a front-row seat to humanity's transformation from a single-world species to a galactic power 3 months ago. Her biggest concern had been water recycling efficiency. Now she was overseeing the construction of humanity's first interstellar colony ships. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Elena," Dr. Webb said, joining her at the observation window, "what do you think of all this?" "Honestly, it's terrifying and exciting at the same time," she replied. 6 months ago, we were alone in the universe. Now we're apparently the most feared species in the galaxy. Does that bother you?" Elena considered the question. "Marcus, I've been reading the intelligence reports about what the Council did to other species. Forced relocations, tribute demands, entire civilizations reduced to slave labor. If being feared means other species can live free, then no, it doesn't bother me at all." Below them, Admiral Chun was explaining humanity's position on interstellar law. "Earth recognizes no authority higher than human conscience," she was saying. "We will defend ourselves, we will protect our allies, and we will intervene when we witness injustice. Any species that finds this arrangement unacceptable is free to avoid human space entirely." Ambassador Zextel shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Admiral, the Council has maintained galactic peace for 4 millennia. You maintained galactic submission," Admiral Chun corrected. "There's a difference. Peace built on the threat of overwhelming force isn't peace. It's oppression with a different name." Representative Yara leaned forward. "What exactly are you proposing, Admiral?" "I'm proposing that every species in this galaxy has the right to determine its own destiny. No more tribute. No more forced compliance. no more threats against civilian populations. And if some species refuse to accept this new order? Admiral Chun's smile was cold and dangerous. Then they'll discover why threatening Earth was the worst decision the Council ever made. The meeting ended 2 hours later with no formal agreement signed, but the message had been delivered clearly. Humanity would not be contained, controlled, or intimidated. They had taken their place as a galactic power, and they intended to use that power to reshape the galaxy according to their own values. As the alien delegates filed out of the assembly hall, many of them were already sending urgent messages to their homeworlds. The galaxy was changing, and species that wanted to survive the transition would need to adapt quickly. Dr. Webb remained behind as the hall emptied, reviewing the holographic displays of Earth's expanding defensive network. Admiral Chun joined him at the control console. "Marcus, do you ever wonder if we're doing the right thing?" she asked. "Every day," he replied. "But then I think about what would have happened if we had surrendered to their ultimatum. How many human colonies would have been dismantled? How many of our people would have been relocated to meet Council approval?" Admiral Chun nodded. "And, how many other species would have continued suffering under their rule?" "Exactly. We didn't ask to become a galactic power, Sarah, but now that we are one, we have a responsibility to use that power wisely." He gestured to the display showing human ships scattered across nearby star systems. 6 months ago, the galaxy was ruled by fear. Species obeyed the Council because they were afraid of what would happen if they didn't. Now they're obeying us for the same reason. Is that really better? Dr. Webb was quiet for a moment before answering. "Sarah, there's a fundamental difference between our approach and the Council's. The Council demanded obedience. We demand justice. Species that treat their citizens fairly, that trade honestly, that resolve disputes peacefully have nothing to fear from us, and the ones that don't? They get to find out what happens when you anger a species that has learned to weaponize physics itself." Admiral Chun looked out through the observation windows at the night sky. Somewhere out there, human ships were patrolling trade routes, protecting colonies, and making it clear that the age of Council dominance was over. "Marcus, I want you to accelerate Project Titan. If we're going to reshape the galaxy, we need to make sure no one can challenge us." "How much acceleration?" "I want those weapons operational within 6 months. And I want them powerful enough that even thinking about attacking Earth is obviously suicidal." Dr. Webb nodded. "I'll get the teams working on it immediately." As they walked toward the exit, Admiral Chun reflected on how much had changed since that first alien ultimatum. Humanity had been forced to choose between surrender and war. They had chosen war and won so decisively that the very concept of galactic authority had been redefined. Now, when alien species had disputes, they asked for human mediation. When colonies sought independence, they requested human protection. When traders needed safe passage, they flew under human escort. The galaxy had spent 4,000 years learning to fear the Galactic Council. Now it was learning something new. It was learning to respect humanity. And for those who couldn't learn respect, they would learn fear. Because the species that had once been dismissed as primitive had proven that sometimes the most dangerous civilizations are the ones that everyone underestimates.
The stars looked different from the bridge of the Intrepid. Admiral James Reed stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as his fleet assembled in formation. 12 ships, the pride of humanity's space force, gleamed under the light of the distant sun. The Admiral's weathered face showed no emotion, but his eyes revealed the weight of responsibility he carried. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said Lieutenant Dan Harris from his station. The young officer's voice was steady, though Reed could detect a hint of nervousness. "Very good, Lieutenant. Begin final checks on the Horizon Drive." The Horizon Drive was humanity's newest weapon in the war against the Dominion. For 10 years, the alliance of humans and friendly alien species had fought against the expanding empire of the Dominion. What began as border skirmishes had grown into a full-scale galactic war. Millions had died already. Planets had been destroyed, And now, the tide was turning against the Alliance. Captain Tom Green approached the Admiral, datapad in hand. "Sir, engineering confirms the drive is functioning at optimal capacity. We can jump when ready." Reed nodded. "This mission could end the war, Captain. If we can get behind enemy lines and strike their command center at Velox Prime, we might just break them." The Horizon Drive was experimental technology, a new kind of warp engine that could bend space in ways previously thought impossible. It would allow the fleet to bypass the heavily defended Dominion borders and appear directly at their headquarters. The element of surprise would be total. "Sir," Tom said quietly, "I should mention that the science team has noted some unusual energy readings from the drive. Nothing dangerous, they assure me, but unexpected." Reed frowned. "We don't have time for caution, Captain. The Alliance is losing ground every day. This is our chance to turn the war around." On the main screen, the tactical display showed the current battle lines. Red areas, Dominion territory, had spread across nearly 2/3 of the map. The blue regions, representing Alliance space, were shrinking weekly. Reed opened the fleet-wide communication channel. "This is Admiral Reed to all ships. Today we embark on the most important mission of this war. Our new Horizon Drive will take us directly to the heart of enemy territory. We will strike fast and hard. The Dominion believes their borders are secure, but we're about to prove them wrong. For humanity, for our allies, for the future of free space, we fight." Cheers erupted across the communication channels. Reed allowed himself a small smile before turning to his navigation officer. "Commander, Bell, begin the Horizon Drive sequence." Jane Bell, the fleet's most experienced navigation officer, input the commands. Her fingers moved confidently across the control panel. "Horizon Drive powering up, sir. All ships are synchronized. Jump in 30 seconds. The lights on the bridge dimmed slightly as power diverted to the experimental drive. A low hum filled the ship, rising in pitch as the seconds counted down. 20 seconds. Reed thought of his family back on Earth. His wife, Mary, and their 2 children. He had promised them this would be his last mission before retirement. 10 seconds. Captain Green moved to stand beside him. "For the Alliance, sir." "For the Alliance," Reed replied. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Horizon Drive engaged. A brilliant blue light enveloped the ships. The stars on the view screen stretched into long lines, then twisted in impossible patterns. The hum became a roar, and Reed felt a strange sensation, as if his body was both compressed and stretched at the same time. Then something went wrong. Alarms blared across the bridge. The blue light turned an angry purple, then a deep crimson red. "Sir," Commander Bell shouted over the noise, "the drive is creating some kind of spatial anomaly. It's growing exponentially." "Shut it down," Reed ordered. "I can't. The systems aren't responding." Captain Green rushed to the engineering station. "The energy readings are off the charts. This shouldn't be possible." The ship shuddered violently. Through the view screen, Reed could see the other ships in his fleet experiencing the same phenomenon. The red light engulfed them all, growing brighter until it was painful to look at. "All hands, brace for impact," Reed shouted, though he had no idea what impact they might be facing. Then silence. The light vanished. The alarms stopped. The ship became perfectly still. "Damage report," Reed called out, his voice sounding strangely muted in the quiet bridge. Lieutenant Harris checked his console. "No damage, sir. All systems operational." "The rest of the fleet?" "All accounted for, sir. They appear undamaged as..." "Well?" Reed frowned. This made no sense. "Where are we, Commander Bell?" Jane studied her navigation console with growing confusion. I don't know, sir. These star patterns don't match any in our database, and I'm not detecting any of our navigational beacons. Could we have jumped farther than intended?" "Possibly, but..." She hesitated. "Sir, the stars themselves look wrong. Their spectral signatures are shifted in ways I've never seen before." Reed felt a chill run down his spine. "Communications, contact Alliance Command, Priority Alpha." Communications Officer Lisa Hayes tried for several minutes before looking up with worry in her eyes. No response, sir. I can't even detect the relay network. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. The galactic communication relay network spanned the entire known galaxy. If they couldn't detect it, "Sir," said Science Officer Alan Foster from his station, his voice tight with controlled fear. "I've been analyzing our surroundings. Based on the readings, I don't think we're in our galaxy anymore." A stunned silence fell over the bridge. "Explain," Reed demanded. "The Horizon Drive was designed to fold space to create a shortcut between 2 points," Foster said. "But something caused it to. Well, the best way I can describe it is that it folded us into a pocket dimension, a bubble of space-time separated from our normal universe." Captain Green stepped forward. "Can we get back?" Foster shook his head slowly. "I don't know. We'd need to recreate the exact conditions that brought us here, but in reverse. It could take weeks just to understand what happened." Reed looked back at the view screen, at the unfamiliar stars surrounding his fleet. 12 ships, 5,000, men and women, all of them now lost in a place beyond the known universe, and back home, the war would continue without them. "Get me a secure channel to all ship captains," Reed ordered, "and assemble the science team immediately." As the crew rushed to comply, Reed stood alone, staring at the alien stars. The mission to end the war had failed before it even began, and for the Alliance, the human fleet, their best hope for victory, had simply vanished without a trace. Dry. War would continue, growing more desperate with each passing day. But for Admiral James Reed and his fleet, a different kind of struggle was just beginning. The fight to return home before it was too late. 5 years passed since the disappearance of Admiral Reed's fleet. 5 long, brutal years. Captain Mark Wilson stared at the holographic map in the Alliance headquarters on Moonbase Alpha. The blue areas representing Alliance territory had shrunk to less than a quarter of what they once were. Red Dominion territory covered most of the map now. "Another outpost lost," he said, his voice rough from lack of sleep. Wilson had aged 15 years in the past 5. Deep lines marked his face, and gray streaked his once dark hair. General Laura Evans, the highest-ranking military officer left in the Alliance, nodded grimly. "Outpost 37 fell yesterday. The colonists managed to evacuate, but we lost the entire defense fleet." Wilson rubbed his tired eyes. "That's the 3rd outpost this month. We can't keep this up, Laura." "I know." She zoomed the map to show Earth and its surrounding systems. A ring of Red Dominion ships surrounded humanity's homeworld. "The blockade is getting tighter. Food supplies will become critical within 2 months." The door slid open, and a young lieutenant entered, saluting smartly. "General Evans, Captain Wilson, the Council is waiting for your report." The 2 officers shared a look of resignation before following the lieutenant to the Council chamber. The remains of the Alliance leadership, human and alien representatives from the few worlds still fighting, sat around a large oval table. Their faces showed the same exhaustion and desperation that Wilson felt. "Captain, your assessment of our military situation?" asked Council Leader Thorne, an elderly human with eyes that had seen too much death. Wilson stood straight, his military bearing never wavering despite his fatigue. "It's not good, sir. With the loss of Outpost 37, our defensive perimeter has been breached in the Western Quadrant. Dominion forces will likely push toward the Arcturus system next." "And if Arcturus falls?" asked Ambassador Krill, the tentacled representative of the aquatic Moravian species. "Then they have a direct path to Earth," Wilson said plainly. A heavy silence filled the room. "What about the rumors of a superweapon?" asked a thin, blue-skinned counselor from the Tauri Federation. General Evans stepped forward. "Our intelligence suggests the Dominion is indeed developing a weapon of unprecedented power at their research facility on Velox Prime. We don't have exact details, but reports indicate it could potentially destroy entire planets." More silence, heavier than before. "The same target Admiral Reed was trying to reach," someone muttered. Wilson felt a familiar pain at the mention of Reed. The Admiral had been his mentor, a second father. When Reed's fleet vanished 5 years ago, Wilson had led countless search missions until the Council ordered him to stop wasting resources. If only Reed were here, Council Leader Thorne said softly. His fleet might have turned the tide. Reed is gone, Wilson said sharply. We need to focus on what we have, not what we've lost. The meeting continued with discussions of resource allocation, evacuation plans, and last-ditch defense strategies. Wilson barely listened. They were just delaying the inevitable. Without a miracle, the Alliance would fall within the year. Across the galaxy, in the ruins of an abandoned Alliance research station, Engineer Tess Morgan wiped sweat from her brow as she carefully removed a panel from an ancient alien device. Her small resistance cell had been hiding here for months, evading Dominion patrols while searching for anything that might help the Alliance. Found anything useful? Asked her companion, Ben, a former Alliance Marine who now served as the group's security chief. Maybe, Tess replied, peering into the complex mechanism. These ruins predate any known civilization in our records. The technology is extraordinary. The ruins had been discovered just before the war began, but the Alliance never had time to study them properly before the Dominion forced them to abandon the station. Now Tess and her small team of scientists and fighters were the only ones who knew of its existence. Can it help us fight the Dominion? Ben asked bluntly. He had little patience for scientific curiosity in times of war. Tess sat back on her heels. I think this might be related to the Horizon Drive technology. Ben frowned. The same tech that caused Reed's fleet to vanish? Yes. The principles are similar, but this is far more advanced. She pointed to odd symbols etched into the device. These equations describe folding space-time, creating pocket dimensions. It's exactly what the Horizon Drive was designed to do, but this version seems more stable. What are you saying, Tess? She looked up at him, hope flickering in her eyes for the first time in years. I'm saying that if Reed's fleet wasn't destroyed, if they're trapped in a pocket dimension like we always suspected, this technology might help us find them. Ben's expression darkened. Reed's been gone for 5 years. Even if they somehow survived, they'd be out of supplies, out of fuel. Not necessarily. Time moves differently in pocket dimensions. For them, it might have been only days or weeks. Before Ben could respond, their communication officer burst into the room. You need to see this, he said urgently, holding out a datapad. We just intercepted a Dominion transmission that makes no sense. Tess took the pad and scanned the information. Her eyes widened. This can't be right. What is it? Ben asked. Dominion patrol in the Outer Rim. They're reporting a sighting of ships matching the registry of Reed's fleet. General Draz stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conqueror, the largest warship ever built by the Dominion. His scaly skin gleamed under the harsh lights as he reviewed the patrol report with growing rage. Impossible, he snarled. Reed's fleet was destroyed years ago. His second-in-command, Commander Vex, approached cautiously. The patrol is certain, sir. They identified the human flagship Intrepid before it disappeared into the asteroid field. Draz slammed his fist onto the console. 5 years. 5 years we have fought to bring the Alliance to its knees. We cannot allow Reed to return now when we are so close to victory. He turned to face the tactical display where a massive device was being constructed around a small moon at Velox Prime. The superweapon, the Planet Killer, was nearly complete. Once operational, it would end the war in days. Recall the patrol, Draz ordered, and send a hunter-killer squadron to the area. I want Reed's fleet found and destroyed, if it truly exists. And if the patrol was mistaken? Vex asked. Draz's yellow eyes narrowed. Then they will suffer for raising a false alarm, but we take no chances, not when we are this close. He turned to stare out at the stars. 5 years ago, the human Reed vanished when we were on the defensive. Now we are on the verge of total victory. His sharp teeth showed in what passed for a smile among his species. If he has somehow returned, he will find a very different war than the one he left. As orders went out across the Dominion fleet, a small disturbance rippled through space at the edge of the galaxy. a fluctuation too subtle for even the most advanced sensors to detect. But it was there, a whisper of something returning, of time and space bending in ways they were never meant to bend. The war was about to change. For Admiral James Reed, only 3 weeks had passed since the Horizon Drive malfunction. 3 weeks of working around the clock to understand where they were and how to get home. Reed stood in the science lab of the Intrepid, surrounded by holographic displays showing complex equations and star maps. Science Officer Alan Foster pointed to a simulation of their jump. "We've figured it out, sir," Foster said, his eyes bright with the excitement of discovery, despite his exhaustion. "The Horizon Drive didn't just move us through space, it moved us through time as well." "Explain," Reed said, crossing his arms. "The pocket dimension we're in exists alongside normal space, but time flows differently here, much slower." Foster adjusted the simulation. "For every day that passes for us, approximately 2 months pass in normal space." Captain Tom Green, who had joined them for the briefing, let out a low whistle. "So while we've been gone 3 weeks, almost 5 years have passed back home." Reed finished, his face grim. "The war could be over already," Green said quietly. Reed shook his head. "We need to get back now. What's our status?" Foster moved to another display. "We've repaired the Horizon Drive and modified it based on what we've learned. We can create a reverse fold that should take us back to normal space." "Should?" Reed asked. "It's not without risk, sir," Foster admitted. "But we've run thousands of simulations. The math checks out." Reed nodded. "And our ships?" "All 12 are ready," Green confirmed. "Crews are at full combat readiness. We've used our time here well, Admiral. The fleet has been training, running drills. We've even managed to improve some of our weapons systems." "Good. We may need every advantage." Reed turned to the communication station where Lisa Hayes was working. "Any success contacting normal space?" Hayes looked up from her console. "Yes, sir. I've modified our communication array to send signals across the dimensional barrier. They're weak, and I can only receive, not transmit, but I've been picking up scattered transmissions for the past 12 hours. "And?" Reed prompted. Her expression was troubled. "It's bad, sir. From what I can piece together, the Alliance is losing the war. Badly. The Dominion controls most of known space now. Earth is under blockade." A heavy silence fell over the room. Reed walked to the viewport, looking out at the strange stars of this pocket dimension. 5 years. He had promised Mary this would be his last mission. She probably thought he was dead by now. "We're going home," he said firmly, turning back to his officers, "and we're going to change the course of this war." 3 days later, 12 ships dropped out of what appeared to be a tear in space itself. The human fleet emerged near the edge of the galaxy, far from any established routes or outposts, just as planned. On the bridge of the Intrepid, Reed surveyed the familiar star patterns with a mixture of relief and apprehension. "Confirmation, sir," Bell said from navigation. "Star patterns match our records. We're back in normal space, in the Outer Rim territories." "Any ships nearby?" Reed asked. "None detected within sensor range," Green reported. "We're alone out here." Reed nodded. "Good. Keep our emissions low. We need to assess the situation before announcing our return." Hayes looked up from her station. "Sir, I'm picking up Alliance and Dominion transmissions. Encryption has changed, but I'm working on breaking it." "Make it your priority," Reed ordered. "We need to know exactly what we're coming back to." Over the next hours, Hayes and her team worked to decrypt the transmissions flowing through space. The picture that emerged was grim. The Alliance had lost most of its territory. Earth and a handful of core worlds were still holding out, but under constant attack. The Dominion had grown stronger, building new weapons and ships. "Sir?" Hayes called eventually. "I've found something alarming. Multiple references to something called the Planet Killer." Reed moved to her station. "What is it?" "From what I can gather, it's a superweapon being built at Velox Prime, the same place we were heading when the Horizon Drive malfunctioned." "Ironic," Green muttered. "We were going there to prevent this very situation." Reed studied the fragmented information on Hayes's screen. How close is it to completion? Very close, sir. Weeks, maybe days. Reed straightened. Then that's our first target. Before we contact the Alliance, before anything else, we stop that weapon. Sir, Green cautioned, we're just 12 ships. Intelligence suggests Velox Prime is the most heavily defended Dominion installation now. 12 ships that no one knows exist, Reed countered. Our disappearance is our greatest advantage, Captain. The Dominion thinks we're long gone. He turned to address the bridge crew. Send encrypted orders to the fleet. We're moving toward Velox Prime using all stealth measures. And prepare a scouting party. I want eyes on that super weapon before we make our move. 2 days later, a small scout ship from the Intrepid hovered at the edge of the Velox system, its advanced cloaking technology hiding it from Dominion sensors. Inside, Lieutenant Mike Ross watched in awe as the massive structure came into view. That's impossible, he whispered. The planet killer was enormous, a ring-shaped device being built around a small moon. Energy pulses flowed through it, and dozens of Dominion ships moved around it like worker bees. Recording everything, said his co-pilot, technician Anya Petrov. The Admiral needs to see this. As they watched, a test firing sequence began. A beam of energy shot from the partial ring, slicing through an asteroid. The rock didn't explode, it simply ceased to exist. The matter converted to energy in an instant. That thing could destroy Earth with one shot, Ross said, his voice shaking. We need to get back to the fleet, Petrov replied urgently. As they turned their ship around, a proximity alarm blared. A Dominion patrol was heading directly toward them. They can't see us, Ross assured himself. The cloaking technology is perfect, but the patrol changed course, moving directly toward their position. They're tracking us somehow, Petrov said, hands flying over the controls. New sensor technology we don't know about. Ross made a quick decision. Transmit everything we've recorded back to the Intrepid. Now. As Petrov sent the data burst, Ross plotted an evasive course. Too late. The Dominion ships opened fire, their weapons lock-on somehow piercing the scout ship's cloak. Send the message, Ross told her as the first shots hit their shields. Tell Reed. Tell him the war isn't over yet. On the bridge of the Conqueror, General Draz watched the recording of the small human scout ship's destruction with great interest. So it's true, he said quietly. Reed has returned. Just a scout ship, Commander Vex noted. Not the fleet itself. The fleet will be nearby. Draz's eyes gleamed. After 5 years of searching, of wondering, finally we will finish what began that day. He turned to his tactical officer. Double the defenses around the planet killer, and send hunter squadrons to search every system within 10 light years. Find Reed's fleet. And when we find them? Vex asked. Draz showed his teeth in a predatory smile. Then I will show the humans what 5 years of warfare has taught the Dominion about destruction. Admiral Reed stood in silence as the final transmission from the scout ship played on the bridge screen. Lieutenant Ross's last words echoed in the quiet room. Tell Reed. Tell him the war isn't over yet. They died gathering this intelligence, Reed said finally. We won't waste their sacrifice. He turned to the tactical display showing the massive planet killer. The weapon was nearly complete, its ring structure wrapped around a small moon. Once operational, it could destroy entire worlds with a single shot. The Dominion knows we're back now, Captain Green said. We've lost the element of complete surprise. But they don't know our strength or position, Reed countered. And they don't know what we learned in the pocket dimension. During their 3 weeks trapped between dimensions, Foster and his science team had made remarkable discoveries. They had learned to control the Horizon Drive in ways never imagined, giving their ships capabilities no one in this timeline possessed. We still can't take on the entire Dominion fleet, Commander Bell pointed out. There are 12 of us and thousands of them. Reed nodded. Which is why we need allies. The Alliance is nearly defeated, Hayes reminded him. They barely have enough ships to defend Earth. I'm not talking about the Alliance, Reed said. Communications, set course for the Karak system. Green looked surprised. The Rock people? They've stayed neutral throughout the war. 5 years ago, yes, Reed agreed. But according to the transmissions we've intercepted, the Dominion has been encroaching on neutral territories. Let's see if the situation has changed. The Carax system was located in what had once been a buffer zone between Alliance and Dominion space. As the fleet approached under cloak, they saw immediately that things had indeed changed. Dominion warships patrolled the system, and a large military base had been established on the second planet. The Carax homeworld itself showed signs of bombardment. So much for neutrality, Green muttered. Reed ordered a scan of the planet's surface. There, he said, pointing to a reading on the display. Heavy resistance in the southern continent. The rock people are still fighting. Sir, Hayes called out, I'm receiving a coded transmission from the surface. It's using an old Alliance emergency frequency. Put it through, Reed ordered. The voice that came through was deep and gravelly, the sound of stone grinding. Against stone, the distinctive speech pattern of the Carax. Unknown vessels, identify yourselves or be fired upon. Reed took a deep breath. This is Admiral James Reed of the Earth Alliance Fleet. We request communication with Carax leadership. A long silence followed. Then, Admiral Reed disappeared 5 years ago. It's a long story, Reed replied. One I'd prefer to tell in person, to whoever leads your resistance. Another pause. Land one ship at these coordinates, come unarmed. Any sign of Dominion tricks, and we will collapse the entire mountain on you. The coordinates appeared on their screen. A hidden valley in the southern mountains. It could be a trap, Green warned. Or it could be the allies we need, Reed said. Prepare a shuttle. Hours later, Reed stood with Captain Green and Science, Officer Foster in a vast underground cavern. Around them towered the rock people of Carax, massive silicon-based beings with crystalline growths protruding from their stone-like skin. They stood nearly 10 feet tall, their bodies resembling living statues. The Carax leader, Elder Granite, studied the humans with glowing blue eyes set in a craggy face. So, he rumbled, the Ghost Admiral returns while the galaxy burns. Reed explained their disappearance, the pocket dimension, and their recent return. When he finished, Elder Granite made a sound like boulders shifting, a Carax sigh. 5 years ago, we chose neutrality. We believed the war would burn itself out. The massive being gestured to the cavern around them. Now we live beneath our mountains while Dominion troops occupy our cities. What happened? Foster asked. The Dominion came 2 years ago, claiming they needed our resources for their war effort. When we refused, they attacked. They thought our neutrality meant weakness. A deep rumbling laugh shook dust from the ceiling. They were wrong. You've been fighting all this time? Green asked, impressed. The Carax are patient. We may seem slow to outsiders, but we endure. Our resistance has tied up Dominion forces for 2 years. Reed stepped forward. Elder Granite, the Dominion is building a weapon that can destroy entire planets. If they complete it, no world will be safe. Not even yours deep under these mountains. Granite's crystalline growths glowed brighter. What do you propose, Admiral? An alliance. Your people know this region of space. You've been fighting the Dominion for years. Combined with my fleet's technology, we might have a chance to stop them. Your fleet is just 12 ships, Granite observed. 12 ships with technology 5 years ahead of anything the Dominion has seen, Reed replied. And we have one more advantage. Which is? The Dominion believes we vanished once. They won't expect us to do it again. 2 days later, Reed's shuttle returned to the Intrepid with not only Elder Granite but also an unexpected guest, a being made of pure light contained within a crystalline vessel. Admiral, Green whispered as they entered the shuttle bay. That's a Luminari. They haven't been seen in Alliance space for decades. The light being floated forward, its vessel humming with energy. I am Radiance, ambassador of the Luminari. Collective, it said, its voice like chimes in the wind. Elder Granite suggested our interests might align with yours, Admiral Reed. Reed bowed slightly. Welcome aboard, Ambassador. I wasn't aware the Luminari had taken a side in this conflict. We had not, Radiance replied, its light pulsing. Until the Dominion began harvesting our stellar nurseries for energy to power their planet killer. They destroy stars yet unborn to fuel their weapon. This cannot continue. In the briefing room, Reed, his officers, Elder Granite and Ambassador Radiance gathered around the tactical display showing the planet killer. The weapon draws power from contained stellar matter, Radiance explained. My people can disrupt that containment, but we must get close. And my warriors can disable their ground installations, Granite added, if you can get us to the surface. Reed studied the display thoughtfully. We'll need more than just the three of us. We need to contact the Alliance. A risky move, Green cautioned. Any transmission might be intercepted. There may be another way, Hayes said, entering the room. Sir, we've detected a small ship hiding in the asteroid belt of this system. It's using stealth technology, but our new sensors can detect it. Dominion? Reed asked sharply. No, sir, it appears to be an Alliance resistance vessel. On the small, battered ship called the Last Hope, Engineer Tess Morgan stared in disbelief at the Dominion patrol passing by her hiding spot. They hadn't detected her ship. They were escorting something else, something impossible. Ben, she called to her companion. Are you seeing this? Ben floated to the viewport, his eyes widening as he saw the 12 ships moving in perfect formation. Ships with Alliance markings that hadn't been seen in 5 years. Reed's fleet, he whispered. They're real. Tess's hands trembled as she activated her long-range scanner. And they're not alone. Those ships with them. One signature matches the Carax, but the other, I've never seen anything like it. What do we do? Ben asked. Tess took a deep breath. For 5 years she had searched for answers about the Horizon Drive, about what happened to Reed's fleet. Now they were here, right in front of her. We make contact, she said decisively. If Reed is back, the Alliance needs to know. As she prepared to break radio silence, a dangerous move in Dominion-controlled space, her communications panel lit up with an incoming transmission on a frequency she had never expected to hear again. Attention, Alliance vessel, came a voice she had only heard in historical recordings. This is Admiral James Reed. We would like to talk. Tess Morgan could hardly believe she was standing on the bridge of the Intrepid, face to face with Admiral James Reed himself. The man was a legend, believed dead for 5 years, and yet here he stood, looking barely older than in the historical records. Your research on the Horizon Drive was remarkable, Reed told her, examining the data she had brought. You almost figured out what happened to us. Almost isn't good enough, Tess replied. The Alliance needed you 5 years ago. Reed's face tightened. We're here now, and from what you tell me, we're just in time. Ben, who had accompanied Tess aboard, spoke up. Captain Wilson has been holding what's left of the Alliance together, but the final Dominion offensive is about to begin. General Draz is gathering every ship he has for an attack on Earth. How many? Green asked. Over 2,000 warships, Ben said grimly. The Alliance has less than 300. The officers exchanged worried looks. Even with their new allies, 12 ships couldn't turn the tide of such a battle. We need to contact Captain Wilson, Reed decided. But first we need a plan to deal with the planet killer. Science Officer Foster stepped forward, his eyes bright with the same excitement he'd shown when solving their dimensional problem. Sir, I think I've found a way. With the Luminary's help, we can modify the Horizon Drive technology to create localized time distortions. Explain, Reed prompted. Foster pointed to the schematics of the planet killer. Instead of creating a pocket dimension that affects us, we create one around their weapon and key Dominion ships. Time inside would move so slowly that from our perspective, they'd be effectively frozen. Is that possible? Reed asked, looking to Ambassador Radiance. The Luminary's light pulsed thoughtfully. My people understand the fabric of space-time, in ways others do not. With your Horizon Drive as a base, yes, it could work. One problem, Elder Granite rumbled. The weapon must be targeted precisely. Someone must get close enough to place the modified drives at key points. Reed nodded. A stealth mission. High risk. I'll go. Tess volunteered immediately. My ship is designed for stealth, and I know the Horizon Drive technology. Reed studied her for a moment, then nodded. You'll need help. Lieutenant Hayes will go with you. She's our best communications expert. And my warriors will accompany you. Elder Granite added. We can protect you on the ground. As the others began planning the details of the operation, Reed pulled Captain Green aside. While they deal with the planet killer, we need to contact the Alliance, he said quietly. We need to be ready when General Draz launches his attack. Green nodded. Hayes is setting up a secure channel now. But sir, how do we fight 2,000 ships with 12? Reed's eyes gleamed. The same way we survived in the pocket dimension, Tom. We changed the rules of the game. Captain Mark Wilson sat alone in his office on Moon Base Alpha, staring at the latest battle reports. The news was all bad. Dominion forces were massing for their final push. Earth's defenses were as ready as they would ever be, but everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. A soft beep from his computer drew his attention, a message marked with a priority code he hadn't seen in years, a code only one person had ever used. His hands shaking slightly, Wilson opened it. Hello, old friend, said the familiar voice of James Reed. Sorry I'm late. On the bridge of the Conqueror, General Draz reviewed the final plans for his attack on Earth. 5 years of war would end in one glorious day of victory. The human homeworld would fall, and with it, the last resistance to Dominion rule. The fleet is assembled, General, Commander Vex reported. All ships report ready for the jump to Earth. And the planet killer? Draz asked. Final power tests complete. It will be operational within hours. Draz showed his teeth in satisfaction. Perfect. We will crush their defenses with our fleet, and if they still refuse to surrender, we will demonstrate the power of our new weapon on their moon. They will watch it crumble before we turn the weapon on Earth itself. And Reed's ships? Vex asked. Draz dismissed the concern with a wave. 12 outdated vessels are no threat to us. If they dare show themselves, they will be destroyed. The jump coordinates are set, the navigation officer announced. Fleet is ready on your command. Draz stood, his imposing figure dominating. The bridge. Begin the jump sequence. Today, the Alliance falls. Near the planet killer, Tess Morgan's ship approached silently, its advanced stealth systems hiding it from Dominion sensors. Beside her, Lieutenant Hayes monitored the communications channels. They're starting their attack, Hayes whispered. The Dominion fleet is jumping to Earth. Then we have to hurry, Tess replied, guiding her ship toward the massive weapon. Our window is closing. In the cargo hold, 6 massive Rock People warriors waited alongside the modified Horizon drives. Each drive had been altered according to Foster's specifications, ready to create the time distortion field. We're approaching the landing point, Tess told them through the intercom. Be ready to move fast. As they neared the surface of the small moon where the planet killer was anchored, alarms suddenly blared. They've spotted us, Hayes called out. No, Tess said, checking her sensors. Something else is happening. Through the viewport, they watched in amazement as 12 ships suddenly appeared near the planet killer, Reed's fleet, led by the Intrepid. Following them were dozens of shimmering crystalline vessels, the Luminary fleet, their ships made of the same material as Ambassador Radiance's container. It's the diversion, Hayes realized. They're drawing attention away from us. Tess landed her ship as Dominion defense vessels raced to engage the unexpected attackers. Now's our chance. Go. On Earth, Captain Wilson stood in the Alliance Command Center, watching as the massive Dominion fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system. Over 2,000 warships against the Alliance's meager defenses. This is it, General Evans said softly beside him. The final stand. Wilson checked his secure channel one more time. Still nothing from Reed since the initial contact. Had it been a trick? A Dominion ploy? Sir, called a sensor operator. Multiple anomalies detected near the Dominion fleet. On the main screen, strange distortions appeared around clusters of Dominion ships. The vessels seemed to slow, then stop completely, frozen in space. What's happening? Evans demanded. Before anyone could answer, A new fleet jumped into the system, but not where expected. Instead of coming from Dominion space, these ships appeared behind Earth's defensive line. 12 ships, their hulls bearing the marks of the long-lost human fleet. Wilson's communication panel lit up. "Hello, Mark," came Reed's voice, calm as ever. "Hope you don't mind if we join the fight." General Draz watched in horror as sections of his fleet simply stopped moving. Time itself seemed to slow around them, trapping them in bubbles of distorted space. "What is this?" he roared. "What weapon could do this?" "Unknown, sir," a panicked officer replied. "But the effect is spreading." On his tactical display, Draz saw Reed's fleet engaging his forces from behind, while strange crystalline ships he had never seen before attacked from the flanks. Massive stone fighters launched from hidden bases on nearby asteroids, targeting his command ships, and worst of all, an emergency signal from Velox Prime. The planet killer was under attack. "This is impossible," Draz whispered as his carefully planned offensive fell apart around him. "Reed has been gone for 5 years. How could he return with technology we've never seen and allies we never knew existed?" Commander Vex approached, cautiously. "Sir, our flagship is being targeted. We need to retreat." Draz turned on him with fury. "Retreat? After 5 years of war when victory was in our grasp?" "Sir, look." An officer pointed to the main screen. The planet killer, their ultimate weapon, was surrounded by a shimmering field of energy. As they watched, it began to fade from view, trapped in its own pocket of slowed time, rendered harmless. In that moment, Draz knew the truth. The war was over. Not with the Alliance's defeat, but with the Dominion's. 1 month later, Admiral James Reed stood at the window of the new Alliance headquarters on Earth, looking up at the night sky. The formal surrender of the Dominion had been signed that morning, ending 5 years of brutal war. "Still hard to believe," said Captain Wilson, joining him at the window. "One day we were facing certain defeat, and the next you appear with 12 ships and change everything." Reed smiled slightly. "Not just 12 ships. We had the right allies, the right technology, and the right moment." "And now?" Wilson asked. "What happens now that the war is over?" Reed turned from the window. In the room beyond, representatives from Earth, the Carax, the Luminari, and many other species, including former Dominion worlds, were gathered to discuss the future of the galaxy. "Now," Reed said, "we build something better than what came before, a true alliance of all species." As he walked back to join the others, Reed thought of the strange journey that had brought them here, a malfunction that sent them across dimensions, a return that came just in time. The war was over, but the real work was just